Hello everyone, my name is Enrique and welcome to another movie review for today on Friday. So, what am I going to talk about today? Well, if you click on this video, you know I'm talking about a movie that honestly I wish I watched a year ago and I regret not watching it on theaters, but now that I did watch it, I gotta say it might be my favorite piece of media involving the Transformers. I'm of course talking about Transformers 1. Now, for those who don't know, Transformers is one of those franchises about robots in disguise turning into vehicles, jets, and all kinds of stuff, but it has a deep lore. After all, Transformers has lasted for a long time with multiple characters, but also having a very simple premise. Autobots and Decepticons fighting each other in order to save Cybertron or to conquer the entire world. Now, the Autobots are the good guys and the Decepticons are the bad guys. And leading these teams are Optimus Prime and Megatron. And these two are one of the biggest rivals in history. They're basically equal to Batman and the Joker, in which they fought for different forms of media, trying to be leaders and fight each other in order to see who shall stand first, or as Optimus Prime says, one shall stand, one shall fall. I've seen these movies for a long time. We've seen the cartoons, we've seen the animated versions like Beast Wars, we have seen animes about these movies, about these franchise. We've seen the Michael Bay Transformers, and we all collectively ask ourselves, why are we seeing these movies? But regardless of what you feel about the Transformers, you gotta to admit this is a huge franchise that Hasbro is happy to retake and return over and over again. And not only that, they are the most successful toys in history. After all, who doesn't want to buy robots who can transform into other vehicles or in other cases into other animals? I mean, this is basically something that we all love. But now we need to talk about the movie that was announced. And it's basically a movie that retells the history, or in this case, the origins of the two biggest rivals, Optimus and Megatron. But in this movie, it's going to be different. And I just gonna say this right now. This might be the best Transformers movie out of all that we have seen. And yes, that includes the original one from the 80s, in which we see a bunch of the characters from the Transformers cartoon getting destroyed. Oh, yeah, including Optimus Prime. And that was one of the most shocking moments in movie history. So for me to actually say that this movie is actually better than that Transformers movie, it's saying something. But it also helps that it has a great cast and a great story. So, without further ado, let's talk about the story, the characters, and what I think happened and what decisions that they made in this movie. So, let's talk about the plot. It's basically seeing the origins of Optimus and Megatron, as I said before. However, originally they were called by different names. Optimus was actually Orion Pax, and Megatron was called D16. And in those cases, those two were actually best friends, the closest thing to brothers. You know those rivalries that we never know the origin, or that we find out the origin and it has to be personal or from a distance? Well, this is basically very personal. Now, it bears to say that it's definitely different from other versions that we have seen of Optimus and Megatron being rivals and the origins to those to that rivalry. In this case, we see that Megatron and Optimus were actually best friends called D16 and Orion Pax. Orion is different from D16, but they bond for the fact that they want to liberate and help Cybertron in any form and fashion, as well as the people who live in the planet. Now, they work as miners inside or underneath the city in which they're working on, and they worship a Sentinel Prime, who is supposed to be the hero of Cybertron, trying to find a way to recover all the energy lost, as well as fight the battle against the Quintessons, which are the biggest enemies of the entire planet of Cybertron. So it makes Orion go into a mission to find out where the Energon is, as well as the Matrix of Leadership, which is supposed to be the key for the Energon to return, which encourages D16 into going into the adventure. Coming across other characters like Elita as well as Bumblebee, the four of them are embarking into an adventure in which they will find a lot of secrets, a lot of truths, and it will, like I said, set up the biggest rivalry between both Orion and D16, realizing what kind of path and what kind of destiny are they going to choose. But regardless of their choices, one thing we know for sure is that after this, nothing will ever be the same, and it will set up a giant big war between the two of them. So, I want to talk about the plot for a moment. It's basically a commentary of the low class people and the high class people. We are going to see a lot of commentary in this movie, but that's one of the things that the Transformers franchise excels at, to talk about who was left behind, who had the biggest things to gain, how people choose to use their resources in order to help, or the trained people, how it all almost seems to be more Shakespearean in its own way. Because that's one of the things that we need to learn about the Transformers. They're not just a franchise about people or about robots fighting each other like they were toys. No, they're just like real people. They choose paths, they had different choices, they denied or accept their destinies, and most of them make the right choices and most of them make the wrong ones. And in this case, it really sets up the mindsets of both Optimus and Megatron. Because here's the thing, Optimus, when he was Orion Pax, he was a guy full of dreams and aspirations. And when he discovers the truth about what happened all those years ago, especially with the Primes, he realizes that he has to do something in order to help the people. While on the other hand, D16, which is Megatron, is basically flabbergasted and even angry to the people who were supposed to help, in this case Sentinel Prime. And while Sentinel Prime is basically a villain or an antagonist in this movie, it's Megatron who makes the hardest choices. Now, I always believed that Megatron was always the bad guy who was there just to conquer the world. But in other forms of media, they made Megatron into a more of a liberator, almost like Magneto, like he's trying to help his own race, but he makes the wrong choices and he puts the hatred on the wrong people, which is something that they added here in this movie and in other forms of media, which is hard to recall, but I would say in the Netflix Transformers movies. So yeah, this is basically Megatron, a guy who was betrayed, lied to, used, and now he's angry and wants to do everything in his power to destroy everything from the past and basically declare himself the ruler and the liberator. But that's something that Optimus has to fight against, and like I said, this movie sets up not from going to being best friends, almost close to brothers, and to be bitter rivals. But let's talk about the character development here. And we're going to go to the last two, which are Optimus and Megatron. But I want to start with the lower ones, the ones that were in this movie, but they had a little bit in the plot. One of the voices that we got in this movie is Lawrence Fishburne as Alpha Trion. Now, he is there to be like the guiding voice for the four adventurers, the four Cybertronian people, which are Orion, D16, Elita, and Bumblebee, and basically is there to explain what happened to the Primes and how they were betrayed by Sentinel. Now, it's no shocking there, but what I like about Alpha Trine it is the voice of Lawrence Fishburne. He has a very deep, booming voice that can bring a lot of motivation, and it's basically there to facilitate the exposition, but it's definitely good to see Lawrence giving a lot of aura and badassery to Alpha Trine. Even though he doesn't do much in this film, it's actually good to see the Alpha Trine is showing a lot of meaningful voice and lore to the Transformers history. Another character that we see in this movie is Sentinel Prime, voiced by John Hamm. And let me tell you, I've seen other versions of Sentinel Prime. The closest one that I remember is the Leonard Nimoy, who voiced Sentinel Prime in Transformers Dark Side of the Moon. And while that version was trying to bring a little bit of sincereness and humanity to a character who was essentially the bad guy, in this movie, he's an egotistical bastard. Basically, he sold out his own people to the Quintessons in order to maintain his status as a leader as well as a savior. Basically, becoming a dictator and trying to appeal to everybody with his charm and having a lot of people in his back in order to make everybody believe a lie. And that's something that John Hamm performs admirably in this movie. He makes me hate Sentinel Prime more so than before, but boy, if you think that the one with Leonard Nimoy was voicing Sentinel Prime was bad, this one is 10 times worse because he doesn't care about his people, he cares about himself. Once again, going back to the allegory about the rich and powerful taking away from the lower class in order to benefit them for their own purposes and means. So yeah, John Hamm really performs that well, which is no surprise. If you've seen this guy in Mad Men, you know that he knows a little thing about one thing or two about being successful and rich, but also taking advantage of the situation. And that's something that we see in this movie very often. We get other characters as we see Starscream played by Steve Buscemi, we see Shockwave played by Jason Alvarez, and Soundwave played by the great honest review or honest trailer voiceover actor John Bailey. Now, this is good to hear them, but of course those three don't do much in this movie. And basically, Starscream is humiliated in this movie, basically getting his ass kicked. And it's hilarious, but it definitely shows how much D16 didn't care about Starscream very often. They're the Royal Guard in this movie, all three of them, and they were trying to liberate Cybertron as well. But they didn't have enough success in the past, and basically with Starscream being the leader of the High Guard, it just shows you how much in the crap they are. But Steve Buscemi is fun in all this. They high-pitch his voice in some areas, humiliating Starscream a lot more, sounding more like the evil, conniving Starscream, and with the high-pitched voice. Wow. My voice sounded high pitched, but yeah, they do a little in this movie, but it's still entertaining. And John Bailey as Soundwave is really cool to see. I mean, the guy who voices on his trailers is doing a lot of Hollywood work now. And I really like that. I remember when I listened to John Bailey's voice in the Honest trailers for every movie that he was in Screen Junkies. So yeah. He's a definite force in the voice department. So, what other characters can we talk about? Well, let's start with B127, or in this case, Bumblebee, which is voiced by Keenan Michael Key. Now, obviously, we all know that Keenan is a comedic actor and he was going to do a lot of comedic timing by playing Bumblebee. And I gotta say, it was entertaining. But I will admit that it wasn't the focus on the movie. And honestly, I'm surprised at the popularity that Bumblebee got over the years. I mean, from the Michael Bay movies, this Bumblebee character has been becoming much bigger and bigger to the point that he got his own solo series. Not solo series, his own solo movie, along with John Cena and Haley Steinfeld. So yeah, this character has grown over the past few years, and this movie is a great example. But in this case, they make him the comic relief for Orion and D16, in which case he was a garbage sorter who was there just to help on the ground and basically trying to figure out what to do. And he was basically trying, he was so lonely that he made friends that were not even robots. They're not even alive. So they were just like statues. But yeah, that's something that Bumblebee does in this movie. And I gotta say, Keenan Michael Key brings a lot of comedic time into this movie. Another character that we see is Elita One, who's voiced by Scarlett Johansson, the original Black Widow. So yeah, Elita in this case, in other versions I should say, Elita One is the love interest for Optimus Prime. Now, I never expected Optimus to have a love interest, especially since I've seen other versions, but I gotta say, I am digging the lore of the entire Transformers history, and Elita was one of the connections to Optimus as Orion Pax. In other versions, they were dating when Orion was just a simple kid doing its own thing, but when the war of Cybertron came and became Optimus Prime, the between him and Alita, it got complicated. If you want to know a little bit about that, you can, like I said, watch the Transformers movies from the Netflix, so you can get an idea of the relationship between Optimus and Alita. But yeah, basically in this movie, they made Alita have more of an attitude and commandership, and they were making her basically almost like a foil to Orion, where Orion is very free and very playful, an adventurer, almost like kind of rambunctious kid. Elita is trying everything in her power to maintain control, to be taken seriously, and I gotta say, Scarlett pulls it off enormously because she sounds like a woman who has been through the ringer, wants to be taken seriously, and whenever something is not going her way, she always gets angry or finds a way to push forward. And that's something that I really enjoy about Alita. And it's definitely showing that it's not just Optimus who's giving the orders, it's Alita as well. Thankfully, they don't make her super bland like in other versions or in other movies that they make their love interest super strong and super serious and without any flaws. Because trust me, we get tired of that nowadays. But now let's talk about the main characters in this movie, which are Orion and D16, aka Optimus and Megatron. Let's start with D16, aka Megatron, who is voiced by Brian Tree Henry. Now, this actor has been all over the map over the past few years. If you know Brian, you probably heard his voice into the Spider-Verse movies. And we here also see him acting in other versions like Bullet Train and the Godzilla movies. So yeah, this guy is not only entertaining and a good actor, but he's also very serious. And he gives that comedy and tragedy to this character as well. Like I said, D16 was a miner along with Orion who were best friends, and they try everything in their power to move forward. But when D discovers the truth about Sentinel, the Primes, and everything that he has been doing over the past few years, ever since he was activated, it ignites something in D16, making him more angry, more paranoid, and realizes that he has to make hard choices in order to save Megatron. Save Cybertron, but in doing so, he's going to do a lot of dark things, and he's going to have to compromise in order to get his goals. And that's something that D16 is struggling with, because we see his frustrations, we see his joys, his disappointments. Brian pulls it off tremendously. I never thought that anyone would bring or give the Megatron, the original one, something to be upset about, or give him more humanity and more dimensions to a character that is supposed to be a very mustache twirling bad guy. But that's something that I really enjoy about the Transformer movies and any other form of media of Transformers. The Megatron is not just a big bad brute who only cares about conquest. He's a guy who wants to save his planet, but he's taking very harsh, very cold tactics in order to achieve those goals. And that's something that Brian pulls it off. He really shows his range from going to be optimistic to depressive, from happy to angry, and that's something that we see in this movie. One of the things that I like about this movie is the transformation of Megatron, how he goes from being this optimistic miner to a cruel, vengeful leader of the Decepticons, willing to fire at anyone who's standing in his way. And the animation on Megatron's transformation is very, very, very good. But now let's talk about the main character in this movie and another foil for Orion, which is another foil for D16, which is Orion Pax, aka Optimus Prime, voiced by Chris Hemsworth. Let me tell you, I enjoy any movie that Chris Hemsworth is at, even in bad ones. He always gives a flavor of not only comedy, but also of drama, which is something that I really appreciate. He made Thor something that I really enjoy. And yes, even in Love and Thunder, I still enjoy the character of Thor because Chris Hemsworth is playing it. And in my opinion, he can do no wrong. In my opinion. So yeah, when he was voicing this version of Optimus Prime, I thought, how are they gonna pull that off without sounding like condescending or without any problems? Because keep in mind, the original voice of Optimus Prime was voiced by Peter Cullen, and that guy is a comic book movie royalty. This guy has been in the business since almost the beginning, and this guy has been voicing Optimus Prime for many, many versions. He's like Kevin Conroy. He voices this character that has become synonymous with its name. So yeah, when Chris Hemsworth took on the role, I was worried that they were going to do a parody of it, or not gonna even come close into being Optimus Prime. But like I said, one of the things that I enjoy is the transformation. And if D16's transformation into Megatron was great, the same goes to Orion Pax to becoming Optimus Prime. Because even though he finds out the truth about the Sentinel Prime, about the other primes, about the Quinton sons, he's still optimistic. He still sees the future in Cybertron. He wants to liberate people. He wants to expose Sentinel Prime from the liar that he is. He doesn't want to destroy everything. He wants to build the future. And that's something that Optimus Prime does. He doesn't care about revenge, because revenge at the end of the day is a worthless cause. Orion sees the opportunity, and when he does the right things, that's where the Primes notices that,
And that's why he became Optimus Prime. And that's one of the things that I enjoy. And Chris Hemsworth sells the voice of Optimus Prime like hell. It's really uncanny to hear Chris Hemsworth almost mimicking Peter Cullen, but he does it so well. And that's something I really appreciate from this movie. And that's something that it comes across of, yeah, this is really good. And one of the reasons why I enjoy Chris Hemsworth's performance in this movie. So yeah, Chris and Brian are the best parts of this movie, and they are the core of what makes Transformers 1 so great. And so, if there's something that you can appreciate, is these two working as friends and as enemies. Now let's talk about the animation. It's stellar. Let me tell you, the Transformers have never looked better in any other form except this one because they really crank up the animation. It has some sort of a 80s style look, but also incorporating some of the modern animations, almost similar to Illumination or to Pixar, but always keeping into the tone of the Transformers. And the animations for the transformations, the environments, even their looks is unbelievable. It's honestly the best we ever seen in Transformers media. Because keep in mind, in the original cartoons, it was always very cheap to show their transformation, and sometimes they change size and there is no reason for it. The transformation in CGI form is a little complicated. This one is almost like a balance of the two. It's simple but it's still complex. It's very good to see how the Transformers transform. And here's the thing. Something I failed to mention is that there is a reason for the transformations. In their chest, they have this little device they are born with, which allows them to transform. But a long time ago, they had those removed in order for them to be prevented into transforming, which I think this is the plan of Sentinel Prime, to avoid anybody from transforming except him and his subordinates. So that's something that is very, very good, and it adds to the lore of the Transformers. And like I said, it adds to the commentary of the lower class and the high rich people taking away from the lower class. So yeah, definitely Shakespearean in its own way. The dialogue is pretty much modern, but also very Shakespearean in some places. When it comes to Orion and D16, the dialogue at the beginning is very modern, very cool, very trying to be appealing to the demographic of the people and the youngsters. But when the movie continues, they became more Shakespearean. The dialogue is more deep and meaningful. So yeah, I really appreciate that from the movie. It's probably the best dialogue that we got so far. And yes, the comedic timing is still good. The lore, oh my god, the lore of the Transformers, it's changed in this movie, but it's definitely adding more and more to the weight of this franchise, and it definitely shows how much the creators appreciate this or care about the Transformers. Now, I gotta say, the director Josh Cooley did a tremendous job, as well as the script players Eric Pearsons, Andrew Barner, and Gabriel Ferrari. They really made the story from a franchise that is supposed to be to sell toys into something beyond, something pure and something great. And the music by Brian Tyler is definitely worth listening to. Seriously, this is a great movie and it's on par with the Spider-Verse, which is basically taking simple ideas and make them into something epic and big. And in 2024, when we got a lot of live action properties that didn't turn out so well, this is an example of why animation is still relevant and why we care about it so much after all these years. So yeah, guys, I highly recommend this movie. It's an A for me, and hopefully you can watch it and enjoy and get your own conclusions. You can see this and see the commentary, or you can see this as a tragedy, a Shakespearean tragedy about two friends becoming bitter rivals. But yeah, this is definitely fun to see and worth your time. So if you get the chance, give it a try. Give it a chance. Watch this film. You won't regret it. I promise you that. So that was my review. If you like it, please give a like, subscribe to the channel, and keep a notice for all the notifications of my videos. I always release on Wednesdays and Fridays, so keep a look on that. And next Friday, I'm going to talk about another movie, but this time I'm going to go back in time to a more nostalgic time. In this case, 1995. So I hope you guys enjoy this review. I'm Enrique, and I'll see you next time. Till all are one.